Hit me one time. Yeah. It's Capital City Podcast. I'm your host, Capital J, alongside my main man,
DL Glass.
And we in the building. Tonight, we got a very special guest, a man I've known for a long, long time. Yeah, and I've already dated myself, you know, by explaining how long I know people and when I first started DJing.
Right.
But I ain't going to throw Kyle under the bus. He still got the young man look, so I just known him a long time. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, on the podcast, we got a special guest by the name of Kyle Santillian. Indeed. You may recognize that name from the syndicated morning show, The Morning Hustle. But I knew Kyle way back in the day from the Wild Out Wake Up Show. Kyle, say what's up to the people.
What up, people? What's happening, man? I'm happy to be here, man, talking to my brothers, man. Shout out to, of course, my man DL and the one and only, you know what I mean, the Kizzy Capital J.
Oh, man. That's my handle right there, Kizzy Capital J.
Okay.
Yeah, that goes back.
Inside-ish.
Nah, hey, come from the mixtape days.
Okay. Okay.
Now, first of all, we always like to start in the way back, okay? So I'm going to give a brief introduction of Kyle Santillian, and then we're going to let him pick up and tell his story. Now, this man is an import in the North Carolina Radio Hall of Fame that I just made up right then. I created the North Carolina Hip Hop Hall of Fame, the North Carolina Radio Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And at Winston-Salem State, they have an awesome communications department. And they put out a lot of talent. And this man is the product of a quality program. And he, like a lot of others, started off at 102 Jams in Greensboro, where I was working. And I got to know this man. And I found out that we had a lot in common. He started off spinning on the turntables. He rapped. He did everything hip-hop related. And I said, hey, I like this guy. This is one cool cat. We worked together on weekends. We did a nighttime show during the week. I would come in and mix when Kyle was on there in the evenings at 102 Jams. What was the name of that show? It was the Wild Out too? Or
yeah, we called it the Wild Out.
The Wild Out, right. And then he went to morning radio first.
Okay.
And followed by me and later on B-Dot.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not where the story ends. So, first of all, Kyle, tell us where you're from and how you got interested in music.
Yeah, man, appreciate that. So I'm born in West Philadelphia.
In West Philadelphia.
Born and raised.
Not raised. That's where it switches up for me. So, like, I was born in West Philly, and I spent some of my young years there. And by the time, I guess you could say I was in second grade, we moved out of the city into Franklinville, New Jersey. Now, Franklinville, New Jersey, although you cross the state line, is still considered part of the Philadelphia tri-state area. So, we had the benefit, I'll say the benefit of having access to the city, but we didn't live in the city. It's about a 25-minute drive if you want to count the time. Born in West Philadelphia, raised in Franklinville, New Jersey, still in that Philadelphia tri-state area. Long story short, ended up going to Winston-Salem State University, like you mentioned. From there, transitioned into 102 Jams, where we met. Did a total of 15 years at Jams. Then when my Jams run ended, I landed in Chicago, and I did 8 years in Chicago as part of the WGCI morning show. And just recently this year, early 2023, became part of the Morning Hustle syndicated show, which has me working out of Atlanta, although the morning show is on in about 25 cities.
Oh yeah. They syndicate that show right here in Raleigh too.
Yes, sir. K97.5.
Yep.
And also, so talking North Carolina, also in Charlotte on 102.5 The Block.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
So I got a couple of questions. Now I know you for a long time. I don't think I ever sat down and asked you, how did you figure out that you wanted to go to Winston-Salem State? Like being up there, what brought you to North Carolina?
So I gave you the condensed version early in that little rundown, right? But the longer version of the story is coming out of high school. Like I really didn't apply myself in high school at all, right? And I know that to be a fact. Like I would always do well. You know how you take those placement tests and they put you in classes based on how well you do on the placement test.
Mm-hmm.
So I would place well. I would place in like honors classes, honors English, all of that kind of stuff. But I would get in these classes and I would not do my work and didn't want to be there, half-assed it. So I would kind of like barely pass just on my effort. You know what I mean?
Right.
So by the time I graduated, when my friends were going to schools like Rutgers University or had some friends that went to the University of Pennsylvania. Schools like that, I ended up just staying home and going to community college in New Jersey. I went to Gloucester County College. And what's crazy is, right, I started kind of DJing in high school. So when I was staying home and I was going to a community college, even when I go to the community college, they had like a little DJ booth, right? It was like a little closed caption radio station. Yeah, I could DJ in a DJ booth and you wouldn't hear it nowhere but in the student union. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's dope.
So I would end up doing shit like that and not going to class, like still not, focusing on work. And, some days me and my homie were like, you feel like going to class today? I'm like, nah, I don't feel like going. So we find ourselves, hanging out downtown Philly, going to record shops, buying records. Cause like I said, I was DJing at the time, just on some neighborhood stuff. And I would just do a lot of I was more interested in DJing and music than I was going to class. So long story short, after 3 semesters at community college, I get put on academic probation, right?
At community college.
At community college. Okay, Kevin Hart.
Yeah, you feel me? Right, exactly. So I'm like, damn, like who the hell gets put on academic probation from community college? Like you really ain't doing shit. You feel me? I also had asthma. So one time I had an asthma thing. So I was in the hospital for 5-6 days, kind of recovering from this little asthma attack or whatever. So here's how I got to North Carolina. So at the time, my uncle, one of my father's brothers, he was living in Winston because my aunt, his wife, she was in medical school at Wake Forest.
Mm.
Now, he's from Philadelphia as well, but at the time, like I said, he's living in Winston. And, he knows I'm messing up in school and not really doing what I'm supposed to be doing in community college and all of that. He's like, man, you need to get your shit together, man. Come down here and, come down here and just get yourself together. And I was like, yeah, right, Unc. I ain't moving down south. You got it. I'm cool. You know what I'm saying? I was on that, for a minute.
Right.
And then long story short, man, we did a visit. Me and my cousins, we did a visit. We drove from Philly to South Carolina. Then on the way back to Philly, we came to North Carolina, stopped in Winston, and before we came all the way back to Philly and Jersey. And when I was there, my uncle and my aunt, they both kind of talked to me, telling me the same thing. And I was still like, no, I'm not moving down here. And then what happened was when I got back home, and I'm like, damn, I'm still living in my parents' crib. I'm working at this store, making people sandwiches for a living. I was like, I think I'll take them up on that offer.
Sounds good now.
Yeah, once I got back home, I'm like, yeah, this ain't it. I might as well go ahead and do that because it's better than this. You know what I mean? So I took him up on the offer. I came down to Winston. I was staying with him. And mind you, I had messed up even community college so much. I still had to start over community college. So I ended up going to Forsyth Tech Community College in Winston. And then the plan was I was going to apply to A&T and I was going to apply to Winston-Salem State because they were the 2 HBCUs. So I applied to both of them. I got accepted to both of them. But because of my academic history, A&T said, we're going to accept you, but we'll accept you under academic probation. And because I was being accepted under academic probation, I was ineligible for financial aid.
Ooh.
Wow.
And that's a no-starter.
Yeah, right. And Winston was just like, yeah, we accept you. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to Winston because I can't get no money to go to A&T.
Wow.
That sounds like part of that is similar. That's how I ended up at UNCG.
Yeah.
A&T taking too long with the financial aid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I had a room and everything, but I was like, man, they hadn't told me how much money I'm going to get yet.
Right.
UNCG had the paperwork all done. I said, well,
Right.
I guess we headed to
That
G.
happened with my daughter too. That's why my daughter didn't go to my oldest daughter. That's why she didn't go to Howard. She ended up staying in Chicago going to college because Howard was taking too long with the correspondence, but she was already straight with the other schools.
Right.
Wow.
Yep. So that's one of them things we be having to work through at HBCUs, man.
Hey, aren't you glad you did though?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Indeed. Now,
Absolutely.
during this time that I've known you, I haven't just known you to be a radio personality. I know you as a rapper too.
Yeah.
So, at what point did you pick up the pen?
Probably that same time period when I think I probably started DJing like just on some in my basement in my neighborhood, probably like my senior year of high school. So probably around that same time, you know what I mean? Maybe coming right out of high school, started rapping. But there was, I was part of. It was really my homie. I was part of a group, but my homie that I went to high school with, he was kind of like he was really, really super nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just trying to get in where I fit in, but he was kind of super nice. But I would say I started writing probably senior year of high school, coming out of high school.
That's what's up. Well, I want to give a shout out to the 5 Foot mixtape.
Yeah. The mixtape, we got Cap J on there going crazy.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That was good stuff, man. Good work.
Yeah,
now,
appreciate it.
Okay, so you moved down here. Now, I've often looked at you as a person who is often dealing with culture shock. I mean,
okay.
like a dude from I'm doing my air quotes from the city,
right?
Who was down here. I could see a lot of times, especially when we were working together, it'd be something happen that is so exclusively country,
right?
And I look over at Kyle sometimes, and he's just like, "What in the hell? What in the Jim Crow is going on right now?"
Right.
And so tell me about how it is as a northerner being here, especially on the hip hop scene. Because I know you got experience with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting, man, Cap. Because honestly, remember, like I said, us moving out of Philly into Franklinville, New Jersey. Franklinville, New Jersey is rural. Right? So although I was up north, although there was a northeast, although it was all of that influence, my everyday environment, for the most part, was rural, unless we drove into the city. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting is that even though I grew up in my immediate environment was rural, it wasn't Southern. And sometimes I think the Southern culture, I'll put it this way: Winston-Salem and Greensboro per se are more city than Franklinville, New Jersey, which was a country town, right? So it's kind of like it's almost like juxtaposed. Like I was in a small town outside of a big city, then I move into a
big city in the country.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? Like it's kind of crazy, but it really just showed me like it wasn't really whether or not you were in the city or you were in the country. It was just a difference in culture. Whether it's you were from the north or the south. You know what I'm saying? So that's really where some of those things came into play. But, I mean, it's cool. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I think it was a great thing for me because, I think everybody at some point should move from wherever they're from and live in other places and kind of like, you realize that although people have different customs, different ways they do things, we're all way more alike than we're different.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and
because even with that being said, like when I left North Carolina and went to Chicago, it's kind of like, all right, Chicago has its own thing, but if you're black, you're going to get along with most of the shit we do regardless. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what I was telling Cap. I used to live in Chicago, and I consider Chicago a big-ass southern city in the north.
Yeah. I understand that. For me, I always said Chicago as a city, for me, culturally feels somewhere between Philadelphia and the South.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere between that Northeast and that Southern thing. Like you have everything that you have in the Northeast, and you have some of the pace is kind of somewhere between the two, but it's not as aggressive. But it's more aggressive than down south, but maybe not like in New York.
Right.
Right. Now, before we move like farther into the story, I want to talk about this time period that we both lived through, and it was that time period when the South started taking over the music scene. And for people who grew up spoon-fed on good old-fashioned Northern hip-hop, it was a tough time.
Right.
You feel me, right? I'm not.
Yes,
I'm not.
absolutely.
Yeah. It was a tough time because there was an absolute readjustment.
Yeah, it was.
And working on the morning show was when, I'd already, on the mix show, I had embraced that certain songs are just, too strong to be ignored.
Right.
Yeah.
But they weren't everyday songs yet. So, the beginning of the Southern takeover, I say, started, when Master P started getting hot. But when I bring Bout It to the mix show, it's not necessarily on the radio 24 hours a day.
Right.
But there comes a time, though, when it ain't my fault by the time that drops. It's on all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, 50 Cent is up against the Lil Johns and all of this stuff.
Right.
And that period of time was an adjustment period. And working with Kyle, I could see that out of all of us in the room, like I said, it's me, Kyle, Af, and B-Dot. Kyle's northern, B-Dot is all the way about the south. I grew up on all of it.
Right.
So I'm the liaison between people who enjoy both styles. But Kyle would be on one end like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And Dot is on the other side like, man, you crazy.
Right.
You crazy. Jeezy is the man. Young Jock, that's the... And I can look Kyle, I'll be looking at Kyle inside my eye like, man, he just don't know nothing about Biggie and Nas. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So as a northerner being surrounded by this, watching this music take over, how did you feel during that time period? We're gonna move on to something else, but I just wanted to pick your brain for a second because we talk to people about music all the time, and you're one of the few people that happen to be in the South while this transition is happening, but you came up.
At the time, I felt like it was kind of like the music was losing its principles. That's literally how I felt. I felt like the music was losing its principles because, and let me say this too, I never really looked at, hey, I like Northern hip hop, or hey, I like New York hip hop, or hey, I like East Coast hip hop. I never viewed it that way.
It was a certain standard.
It was just a standard for hip hop. Period. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was never like I never liked things. In my opinion, at least in my opinion, I didn't like things based on where people were from. I like artists and the music based on the principles and the standards in which they made music. You know what I mean? And I'll say this for example, like I like Nas the same way I like Outkast, the same way I like Scarface, who was from Houston. The same way I like Snoop and Dre, who was from LA, the same way I like the Hieroglyphics, who were from the Bay Area. You know what I'm saying? The same way I like Common, who was from Chicago. Like all of these people from different regions, but they upheld, at least in my mind, what I thought the standard of hip hop should be.
The original standards.
Exactly. So that's why I used to hate when people would say, "Oh, you only like it because it's East Coast or it's Northern hip hop and all that shit." I'm like, nah, I like niggas from everywhere as long as they hip hop. You see what I'm saying? Right.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah. So that being said, I always hated that argument. But it wasn't. It took me to kind of move around to realize that's how people in other regions view the hip hop that they like. They labeled it as oh, that's East Coast hip hop or New York hip hop or whatever the case may be. But growing up in that region, me and my people didn't look at it like that. We
Right.
just like hip hop. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So to get back to your point about the transition, some of those same principles that I just mentioned that were upheld by the artists that I mentioned, I felt like that was being lost. Like if we're being honest, like you might have turned up to Master P, but we all know Master P can't rap. Like let's be honest.
Hey,
Like you know what I'm saying?
we've
We all
had
know
this.
that.
We've had this conversation on the podcast before, and I always credit Master P with the beginning of the end of standards.
Yes.
Like there were no engineering standards. There was no
Just put it out.
Yeah, just put it out.
Master P
Just put it
that-
out. When I heard Silk the Shocker, I was like, okay, they just don't give a damn. Like nobody sat down.
You know,
I mean-
that would drive me crazy, bro. Like, and to be honest, like I remember being on campus at Winston-Salem State when maybe Rap City or UMTV Raps or something came on, and I think Ice Cream Man, Master P Ice Cream Man came on. And yeah, bro, we started laughing at stuff like that. Like, look at this. Like, this is hilarious. Why would they even put this on TV?
Right.
And then boom, 10 years later, look who Master P is, you know?
Absolutely.
Right. But you know something, like I say, I'm the liaison between those styles, and I often equate music that doesn't follow your traditional standards to reggae. And I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay.
Like somebody say, "Hey man, listen what he's saying. He ain't talking about nothing."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one common argument. You know, they ain't talking about nothing, and they're not really. But sometimes it's just a vibe.
Right.
Right.
And I say, well, if you can listen to reggae and you don't know what they're talking about, and you still like the song, think of a song you don't like as a reggae song. Is it still bumping? Right. Is it making people move? Is it catchy? Kind of dope? You don't really need, what's the difference in and it's the same thing. The music,
no, I understand.
I
think that's what it became. It became more mood music.
Mm-hmm.
Energy music, you know what I'm saying, rather than lyrics. And to be honest, like I know I'll say, yeah, you probably did start with Master P, but I'll take it a step further, bro, and I'll say that Diddy kind of created some of that shit too.
Did he?
Yeah, because one line that he always famously said that really angered me at the time was, "Don't worry if I write rhymes, I write checks." Bro, I'm worried if you write rhymes. I'm really worried about. That's what
Now, on previous podcasts, the same way that I gave Master P his credit for opening the door for anybody,
I was wondering if you were going to say.
I give Puffy. I always credit Puffy with taking the grit out of hip hop. Hip hop used to be hard and gritty and edgy.
Yes.
And it's like Puff Daddy came through with a nail file and filed all the rough edges off of hip hop.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit too much for me.
Yes, I agree. I think we're on the same page in terms of how we saw this play out, because I'll even take now, mind you, like it's 2023 now, and I know Puffy's going through what he's going through right now, but from a business perspective, I always look back on him and say, all right, man, well, shit, as a businessman, like he did what he did. But if we're talking about my mindset during the time that these changes are happening, I always thought, like, in my opinion, Diddy was the second coming of MC Hammer. Like, as much as we despised MC Hammer, like I was despising Diddy.
Right. Right. The absolute commercialization.
Reason. Yes.
Absolute commercialization.
So you agree with Cap that Diddy kind of killed hip hop?
I mean, not initially, but I think it might have been, the second or third nail in the coffin.
Yeah, somewhere along the line, man. And then when the white party started happening, the grown and sexy era, that I was appalled. Because you know what, you got to go back to the mentality of hip hop prior. Like hip hop was always the rebel music. Hip hop was
You know, they don't rock with us on the radio. We don't care. We you know what I mean? We're not changing. We're
Right. You put on them hard bottom shoes to go to the R&B club.
Right.
And all of a sudden you got to be
it.
dressed up and I don't get it. That's not hip hop.
Right.
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 You know what I'm saying? So like when all of the artists prior to that were like, yo, we're trying to keep a certain standard for hip hop, and certain artists were trying to commercialize it. That's why MC Hammer, you know, like I said about Hammer, like people didn't appreciate that. Like, no, man, that's not what we doing over here. If you want that, go over there. Like, but we trying to keep this on some, you know, and I don't mean street shit on some like you got to be a gangster, but we're trying to keep it street in terms of like our perspective. Like, get that out of here.
But you know, the funny thing about Hammer though is that I think I think Hammer's street was lost on us being from the East Coast. And there's one thing we do share North and South is that we're East Coast.
Okay.
And Hammer was street.
As they come.
Yeah, but we're talking about musically though.
I
Right?
mean, even musically, like I was exposed to a lot more Hammer than a lot of people. Like sometimes people just only know the stuff that came on the radio. Mm-hmm. You listen to like Hammer had a song on his first album called Go MC Hammer. Man, that was one of the hardest joints ever.
Right.
At that time. Mm-hmm. You put it in your Jeep, in your Suzuki Samurai, and put the tape in, and I mean it rocked hard as anything Run DMC ever made and all that stuff. But I think, you know, those songs, unless you were on the West Coast listening to whole Hammer albums, you missed all of that.
It didn't resonate over here. Right.
And he just happened to stumble onto a formula that people were digging. But at his root, MC Hammer was very, very hip hop. Like at his stage show, he got 2 live DJs spinning. Mm-hmm. You know,
and he brought the whole hood with him.
Right. This dude owned the club back in the day.
Right.
I mean, you know, I don't mean like literally own the club. I'm talking about Hammer
spinning.
Yeah, Hammer was that dude, man, and he just happened to be able to do both. But I think Hammer has some real hip hop in him. The same way, and it's the same way with Puffy too.
To be honest, even to go along with what you're saying, though, Cap, I even think that it, you know, at least from my perspective, what I remember, it was really the second album that pushed him into that commercial space where niggas was like, nah, I'm cool now. Because the song, I know he had the group, but the song Oaktown 357, I remember, you know, that was cool. Turn This Mother Out, it was like, all right. I mean, it ain't too crazy. It was all right.
Yeah, Turn This Mother Out was kind of dope when he dropped them traditional hip hop breakbeat.
Yeah.
And he killed it. Mm-hmm. He even sprinkled some diss in there from Run DMC. I don't care where you from. I make most look silly, not look dumb.
but you know, we still looked at him like, all right, well, he still can't really rap. And then when he did Can't Touch This, it was like, all right, he was like the first Shiny Sutu.
Yeah, Can't Touch This was, there's, you know, the term jumping the shark. He would start jumping the shark. I
hated that song.
Yeah, man, that was bad news.
Yeah.
But you know, I recently did a Hammer mix, and I was listening to it. I said, you know what? For all the complaining we did about MC Hammer back in the day, he was fundamentally sound.
Okay.
You know, you talk about the standards when you go back and listen in retrospect. Hammer was fundamentally sound.
But you can't just listen isolated, right? You have to listen to it
in its context at the time.
At that time, right? So we're talking like, you know, Turn This Mother Out, or no, not. We're talking about Can't Touch This. What was that? What year was that? 91, 92?
Can't Touch This was like. That was like 89, 90. 90?
Early. Yeah.
Yeah, so you gotta, you know, that goes up against the landscape of maybe the first Tribe Called Quest album, Public Enemy.
De La Soul was happening.
De La Soul.
NWA is out.
Yeah. Right. When you listening to all of that, and then, you know, Big Daddy Kane, and then Hammer, and it's like, all right, nah, we cool.
Yeah. He called his flack.
Hey, since we're talking about the change, and we had your old program director Brian Douglas on the show. How was that? Like the music that? Because I always tell Cap J and anybody else, 102 Jams played the almost explicit version of music. Like if you want to hear the real version, you listen to 102 Jams.
Yeah.
And Brian Douglas, I was amazed to find out that this was a white guy from, where's he from, Florida or somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Florida.
Yeah, that was the program director during this time. Like, how was that? Like, I don't know at which point you met Brian, but working for this white guy and being able to have the creative freedom to basically play anything that you wanted, how was that? And how was your introduction to Brian?
I don't remember the day that I met him, but I came into the radio station as an intern through the promotions department.
Okay.
Through a guy who worked there named Joey at the time. So I guess I probably, obviously being in the building and meetings and stuff like that, got to know Brian or whatever. But I mean, the music and stuff like that, I'm gonna be honest, man, there was times where I thought we kind of went too far. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Me too.
One song in particular I had a back and forth with Brian about was, and now it don't sound like nothing, was Look Back at It, Trina.
I told you. I told you.
That's the song that DL brought up to me that time. He said, "Man,
I told you."
How y'all play that?
Did you have that dialogue on the radio?
No, wait. I had a debate. I went back and forth with Brian about that song, like in his office, and I was like, "Why are we playing this on a morning show? Like, it's too much in the morning." I thought it was too much.
Absolutely.
And I kind of got in trouble. I can tell y'all this now. I kind of got in trouble one time because the song would come up, because all the songs are kind of like, you see the log or whatever to play songs. And I got in trouble one time because every time the song came up, I just skipped it. I was skipping it for like weeks, and I finally got in trouble for skipping it. But
right, we come up in the era where there was a thing called day part, and you would day part music based on your audience, and radio split up. Like morning radio is basically 6 to 10, and you have your lunchtime people is 10 to 2. You have your afternoon guy 2 to 6 or 7. Then you have your nighttime people.
Right.
And traditionally in radio, nighttime is where you hear the most edgy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And all of a sudden, there was no more day parting going on. It's just right straight to the filth.
Right.
First thing in the morning, kids on the way to school.
Yeah.
Right.
So. But I mean, it's like I said, it was cool on one end. One thing I didn't really realize, because I guess we were in it in Greensboro and at 102 Jams, was my sister told me she used to like coming to visit me in Greensboro, listening to 102 Jams because she always heard a version of a song that she never heard played anywhere else.
Right.
I've been saying that the whole time, Cal.
Hey.
Yeah, and I was like, and I didn't realize that. I thought whatever we played, everybody was playing. Like,
no.
I even think back now how many times I'm somewhere else and I'll hear somebody might throw back Chris Brown Run It. And I'm like, well, where's Joel Santana's verse? Like, we always played it with Joel Santana verse.
Right. Right.
So now I realize like other people weren't doing that.
Yeah, and beyond that, we also like if the radio edit was too clean, listen to what I'm telling you. If it's too clean, there were certain words that were okay at 102 Jams.
Right.
Like ass, bitch.
Mm-hmm.
You get away with those.
I don't remember hearing bitch too often.
Oh yeah. Bitch was okay.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, as a mix show dude, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Oh, the mix show maybe.
Like it was.
So you cut these words out?
I'm trying to think of.
You want to cut these words out?
I don't know, man. Ass and bitch. They've been around so long, but we would get away with like Juvenile. It was back that thing up everywhere else.
Back that ass up on 102.
It's back that ass up on 102 Jams.
Right.
And it was still the rest of it was still clean though.
Right. I will say this though. That was another when you talk about culture shock. When I left Greensboro and went to Chicago, there was a certain thing there. I was like, it's more conservative here. And I was like, maybe the city wasn't more conservative, but I guess we were just so pushing the envelope as a radio station that it felt conservative when I got there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So moving on past the music, here's another thing about radio. I'm gonna tell you one thing about Kyle Santillian. Anybody that wants to get in radio, and you see, he just told you everything he's done. This man knows how to do everything at the station.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact.
I mean, really, he came in on promotions.
Okay.
He learned how to operate the entire production room.
Okay.
Yeah.
He can cut your promo, make a commercial, edit an interview, go into the station, operate the entire board, make sure everything runs on time. And, you know, I don't know if I ever told you, man, but everybody can't do that. And you were one of the best at it that I ever worked with.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, just an absolute monster on everything radio related.
And where did that come from, Kyle? Like what? Because I always ask that question. At which moment did you realize that this was it, or you had it?
I don't know. I don't think I ever looked at it that way, to be honest with you. In terms of learning all the stuff, I think number one, just growing up with my father being who he was, I kind of, and just growing up, like, you know, coming up and being a neighborhood DJ, and I think all of us have that little technical part of us, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know how it is, Cap. Like, you probably could take apart a turntable and put it back together, and you know what I mean? Like, you know, I don't know how much technology you're into, DL, but there's a certain curiosity when it comes to technology that I think has always been there, right? So it applied whether it was, you know, DJing and messing with turntables and records and mixers, and then getting into the production room and trying to learn, okay, well, how does this work and that work? Like, it's all computers, even computers, like, you know, even back in my crib when I was coming up, we always had like a computer, whether it was a Texas Instruments, Commodore 64, or, you know, an Atari or Nintendo, all of those kind of things. I think just being technically savvy with that kind of stuff kind of translates to once you get into the radio station and now you're trying to operate that equipment, right?
Right.
So that's one thing. But the other part about it was, I think, you know, prior to me coming to North Carolina and coming to Winston-Salem State and even eventually to 102 Jams, it was kind of like when I walked in that building as an intern, I remember feeling like, oh yeah, this is it. I ain't going nowhere. Like, this is it. So whatever I got to do to stick around. So I knew, like, as an intern, I had to do my duties as in the promotions department, but I knew that I wanted to learn everything possible. So at the time, Uzi D was the production director. I would start asking him if he needed help in the production room, and you know what I mean, with commercials or using my voice on stuff and learning how the stuff worked in there. Driving the van and setting up for remotes when we would do live broadcasts out on the street with the truck, and you know, setting up that equipment. I always was infatuated with the equipment. And then even in the production, I mean, even in the main studio, at the time, Kendall B, when I got there, Kendall B was doing night.
Kendall B.
Kendall B, yo, I used to harass them like, yo, I want to learn the board. I want to learn the board. I want to learn the board. And I would keep consistently asking him until I guess he finally was like, okay, this guy's serious. And he used to be on the air from 7 to midnight. So one day he was like, all right, well, you can come and run the last hour of my show. And that's how I started learning the board, like running the last hour of Kendall B show. And I just thought, I don't know, I just felt like once I was in the building, I kind of wanted to make myself useful and learn everything I possibly could. And I think that's, you know, all of those kind of things led up to, you know, what Cap was saying about being able to kind of operate regardless of what the task was. If it was in the studio, I could do it.
Yeah. During that time that I was working, that we worked together on the morning show, I learned more about how to run stuff than I did the whole other rest of the time that I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Right.
Yeah, because at the Wild, I was like, hey, man, we're going to, you know, like if we want to do a skit or something.
Mm-hmm.
I sit there and watch Kyle's like, hey man, I could do that. Show me how,
Right.
And he just
Right.
walk me through the what we using, Adobe.
Adobe, yeah.
Yeah, and he just walked me through it, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I'd be doing the same thing to Kyle, like, yo, man, like, think about this. The whole time that I'm DJing, there's always been somebody on the other side on the board.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in there with Kyle. I'm like, yo, man, show me this, show me that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I learned more working with Kyle than I did the entire time that I was there. Outside of what knowledge I brought in when I came. So
Yeah, that's good, man. That's what we got to do. We got to show each other. And it's ill too. Even like with the Adobe stuff too. I think part of it too is like, you mentioned earlier about, me rapping and stuff like that. And there was those time periods where I really love the studio, recording studio environment. So even with like the program you mentioned, the Adobe Audition program, and I'm like, oh, we can record on separate tracks. Now I feel like I'm in the studio like a rapper again. It's like all of this stuff is connected. You know what I mean?
right.
So yeah, I just always been kind of infatuated with all of that.
Right. Well, it's I think we try to have an educational vibe in here too, teaching people what
Right.
you need to do. And if anybody's learned anything already, he just told you. He came in and he learned everything he needed to know. Like Kyle was somebody that could be used anywhere you needed a person.
Right.
Yeah.
He had this like, okay, I need somebody to run this shift. Okay, he's on the microphone. I need somebody to cut a commercial. He can cut the commercial. Need somebody to do the promo. He can do the promo. Like, and making yourself valuable. That's where it starts. First thing you need to do is learn everything you need to know so that you can be used when the time comes.
Right.
Anywhere.
Right.
And another thing too, Cap, like I don't know if I ever told you this too. Like the other part is initiative too, right? So like I remember that same summer I was an intern. Most people get radio jobs when they have an air check. You know what I mean? Which is basically like a little sample of what they sound like on the radio, and you can take that and shop it around and say, hey, here's what I sound like. Here's my air check or whatever. But as an intern there, never having worked at any other radio station, I went into the production room and made my own fake air check to give to Brian Douglas because I wanted to be on the radio.
Right.
So
Dope.
at the time, we used to have like the clocks that we used to follow in the studio, and I took the clock out of the studio. I took like 1 hour of the music log, and I went into the production room and pretended like I did a radio show for an hour, and it took that to Brian, like, yeah, I want to be on the air. You know what I'm saying?
That's
and that
dope.
kind of like led to even having an opportunity to be on the radio in the first place.
That's dope.
Oh,
That's
wow.
dope.
Yeah.
Now there's this saying in radio. They say, you're not in radio till you've been fired. And
Why did that Cap go, man? Why they let him go?
Oh, I still have no idea, but hey, that time comes for everybody at any given station. It's not, it's not exclusive. Anybody in radio, if your time came up, you're just like everybody else. Your time will come up somewhere.
Right.
So tell me, and a lot of times you don't plan on these things. So tell me about the transition. Okay, jams is over. How do you go about finding your next job? How do you end up in Chicago?
So I started looking for my next job before Jams let me go because I saw the writing on the wall.
Oh, you could smell it coming?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
Yes, sir.
What was
You
that?
work in a place for, huh?
What was that?
So when you work in a place for 14, 15 years, you kind of know when, hey, this feels different or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? And for me, I just felt like going into my last 9 months, I kind of knew. I felt like it. Because I felt like even when I said or voiced certain things, it wasn't being heard. Or, you know what I'm saying? I might mention this or that or, you know what I mean? Normal conversations I might have with Brian or whatever, like those things weren't happening anymore. Or, you know what I mean? Input wasn't being
Right. You feel like people trying to make it easy for themselves to let you go by you felt the distance.
Yeah, I felt the distance. That's the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
I felt the distance that was never there before.
Right.
And I knew that, they kind of looked at me as like, all right, he's getting older now, so to speak, in terms of that 102 Jams audience. You know what I mean?
Right.
So as we got into January of 2014, I knew I had 6 months left on my contract, and I was like, let me start trying to figure out something now. So what I started doing, man, I again, we're talking about air checks a second ago. I started sending my air checks everywhere across the country.
Okay.
I started sending my air checks everywhere across the country, and I started calling people that I knew. Let's say, I'm gonna say maybe like that April, I cleaned all my stuff out the office because I already seen people get walked up out of there and they can't even get their stuff. I seen all that happen before. Like my stuff was out of the office. My stuff was out of the office by April, dog. I already knew what it was going to be.
Right.
Wow.
So what I did was I made a list of every hip hop station in the country. I got the program director's name, phone number, email address, and I was just sending stuff out. Emails, everything, whatever, right? Not necessarily getting responses right away, but that's what I was already on it. I was proactive. Okay. Everybody knows I ended up in Chicago. I had sent my air check to Chicago that April. Now, mind you, I'm not saying like, oh, such and such has a job opening. I'm not waiting for job openings. I'm sending myself blind. Like, I don't know if they got a job opening or not. I just need people to know me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I had sent my air check to Chicago that April, I want to say it was. I ended up getting let go that June. It was like 2 weeks before Super Jam. And then I was unemployed from, July through the end of the year. So a couple of things was happening. With me sending my stuff out and making the contacts that I was making, I was talking to people. The first thing I got offered was a part-time, maybe one show a week in New York on WBLS.
Okay.
And I was like, I can't do one show a week in New York, and my family's in North Carolina. There's no way I can pay my bills with that. So I didn't even really consider it. The company that I work for now, Radio One, at the time when I was looking for something, there was a couple of things in play because it's all the same company. They flew me to Cleveland. I auditioned on the air for a weekend in Cleveland, Ohio. But then also I was doing some weekends here and there in Raleigh because it's all the same company, right?
Right.
At the time, the boom stations were popping up. Radio One had all these boom stations. So even though I was doing these air shifts in Raleigh, I was hoping it was going to land me on the boom station in Philadelphia. So I had that going to play. I got flown out to Kansas City. And there was an opportunity there for me to go to Kansas City. In the mix of all of that, there's so much going on at that time period. Also, I guess within the month after I got fired was also the BET Awards. So I had already made plans to go to the BET Awards. So they have the radio row at the BET Awards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I kind of felt like something was going to happen because I'm at the BET Awards, and everybody in the BET Awards is like, yo, your air check is like the hottest thing going right now. Like everybody's talking about my air check.
So you made some noise in the industry.
Yeah. I was like, word, y'all know? Because, I didn't know who knew I was sending my shit out, but I was sending my shit out. You know what I'm saying? So I was getting like positive feedback at the BET Awards. Boom. Somewhere in that mix, I got an email back from Chicago, like maybe 6 months after I sent the email. And he was like, hey, I was just going back through my emails, and I saw you had sent me something back in like April. He was like, I like how it sounds. Do you have anything else you can send me? Luckily, I had been doing those air shifts at K97 in Raleigh, right?
Right.
So with those new air shifts I did in Raleigh, I had put together a new air check just to be ready. He said, do you have anything else you can let me hear? I said, absolutely. I sent him a new air check immediately. So boom, I sent him that. They was like, yo, we like it. Then they got me on the phone. I did a phone interview. with a couple of different people in Chicago. And then they were like, the next step is we'll bring you out for an interview. So I had to fly out to Chicago, and I did an interview with like, it was the most grueling interview ever. It was in front of like 6 people. It was like the PD, the APD. It was like the general manager, the regional vice president. It was just all of these different people. Like we're all out at dinner, and they're just grilling me with a bunch of questions. So I made it through that, and I felt good because at the end, one lady was like, they were getting me a car to go back to the airport. She was like, well, they must have liked you because they could have just sent you back to the airport in the taxi or something like that, right? So I felt like the interview did well. I felt like I handled myself well. I felt like I killed it. And also had that experience from the weekend I did in Cleveland, because I think I bombed the interview with the Cleveland audition. I was just too nervous. Everything was new to me. I wasn't really ready in Cleveland. But having that Cleveland experience and having everything else in Raleigh and all of that kind of stuff, by the time I went to Chicago for that interview, I was ready. I was good.
Right.
So boom. I get back to Greensboro after the Chicago interview, and my man calls me from Kansas City. He's like, look, man, he's like, we want you here. He's like, but, I do have to make a decision by a certain time. Blah, blah, blah. He was like, I need to know, he's like, I need an answer from you, yes or no. I thought the interview went good in Chicago. So I was just kind of like, I was like, yo, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I interviewed in Chicago, and I can't give you a yes without knowing how it went there. Right?
Right.
So he was like, no problem. He's like, I respect it. Chicago's a major market, but at the same time, I got to move on. So I wish you the best of luck. I was like, I appreciate it. So I turned down Kansas City, not even really knowing if I got the job in Chicago.
Smart, though.
And then, yeah. So then I said, I'll just have my fingers crossed, man. And then like maybe 2 weeks later, they were like, yo, congratulations. We want to make you an official offer. And that was December of 2014, which is about 6 months after I let go. And I had to report to Chicago in January.
Nice.
So that's how my little transition, because I know all this started with how to transition from like, you getting let go to landing in Chicago. So it was kind of all of those little things in the mix of that. But I started, like I said, sending my stuff out before I got let go because I saw the writing on the wall. But then I was very active, during that time as well.
Did you now your tenure in Chicago? Like I know, like during the morning show here, I know that the cast of characters around you changed a few times, slightly. And well, no, not slightly. I guess a lot. So you had different people in there. Was your tenure in Chicago consistent? Did you have the same group the whole time you were there?
Yeah, no, it was the same 3 of us. Yeah, the only thing that changed twice was our producer, but in terms of our on-air morning show, it was just me, Kendra, and Leon the whole time.
Nice. Did you enjoy it?
I did, man. I love Chicago. I'm absolutely in love with the city of Chicago. So,
yeah, I visited once. I visited Chicago one time, and I loved it too, man. I thought it was an awesome place.
My favorite city.
Yeah,
bro.
It's one of my top cities now too, man.
Yeah, and you didn't even get a chance to. I don't know what you got a chance to get into, CL, but Cap, like you didn't even really get to get into much.
Nah.
There's so much more, bro.
Like being a local in Chicago,
right?
And people give Kanye a lot of flack, and from my time in Chicago, I said this dude is a Chicago person. Like he acts just like the people that I was associated with in Chicago. Like it's no different. Blunt, speak their minds, and is always looking for the creative side of people. Like the first time I remember going to like one of those customized sneaker stores in Chicago, I had never seen nothing like this before, and they would just customize everything. And Chicago don't get enough, I guess, recognition for the creativity of the city.
Yeah, it's interesting, bro, because when you live there and you you have to kind of live there to see the influence on the rest of the country.
Right.
Because if you never been there, and all of these things that are taking place around the rest of the country, you won't even know it came from Chicago.
Absolutely.
Even little dumb stuff, like I know it's old now, but even little stupid stuff like, the word "thought." They're like, that came from Chicago, and now everybody around the country is saying "goofy." Well, that's the Chicago slang, and
tweaking.
Tweaking. Oh yeah, you tweaking, G. All this, all that, bro.
Joe.
But when you live there, you see it. But if you've never been there before, you don't really know. And I tell people that all the time. Like when I was there, I used to explain to them. I said, listen, if you've never been to Chicago, all of us that grew up on the East Coast, it's like different cities have identities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not you've been to New York, you know what the identity of New York is.
Right.
Whether or not you've been to Miami, you know what the identity of Chicago is.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, at least for me, growing up on the East Coast, I didn't know what the identity of Chicago was. I just knew it was a big city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you found out.
Right.
Yes, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Indeed, man. So after 8 years in Chicago, how does this opportunity come up for the Morning Hustle? Because it's like, just me as an outsider sitting here watching,
mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh man, Kyle's on the way to Chicago. That's a big move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Chicago gives you millions of listeners right there in one area.
Right.
But it's not quite the same as syndication. Syndication gives you even more listeners in every large city across the country, pretty much.
Right.
So how do you make that transition? Is it something that you said to yourself? But I know that even when we were working together on the morning show back in the day, you always mentioned syndication.
I know. I always wanted it. Right. It's kind of crazy how it comes into play. And even in this situation, it was kind of crazy. Basically, I was having long story short, I was having a contract dispute in Chicago, and it's another one of those situations where my contract was up, and my contract was up. I was down to my last, 6 months, 4 months, and they did make an offer, but I was just like, nah. At the end of the day, like I just felt like I've been here 8 years, and they wasn't offering me, money. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of like, I don't know if it's because everybody's coming off of COVID, and it almost felt like they was like, well, you'd be happy everybody still got a job type stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I was just like, I just couldn't accept it. I was just like, nah, man, like I can't do it. Like if I got to figure out a way to pay my bills with this street money, then I'll just do that. Because mind you, after 8 years, man, I had very much a large presence in the nightclub community. Like I had 2 weekly parties, I had 2 monthly brunches. You know what I'm saying? I was outside, so I was just like, I'm not signing that contract. So if I gotta pay my bills with the street money, it'll just have to be that. So I'll figure something out. So I was just holding out. I was just holding out on this contract, and I was down to maybe my last 2 or 3 days on my contract, and then I got a call about the Morning Hustle. And first the call was like, hey, what's going on with you? How's everything going? Now, I don't know if that person had heard that I was holding out or what I was going through. But I was like, it's funny that you called because here's what I'm going through right now. And they were like, oh, really? Because we might have an opportunity for this, that, and the third. I was like, well, let's talk. You know what I'm saying? And then
So this was more coincidence than something that you put together ahead of time, saying I'm going after this. It kind of came.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much so. Because a couple of things, man. Like a lot of times with these contracts, you're not even allowed to talk to other companies. And I'll just speak from my own personal experience. My previous contracts with these different radio different radio companies, you can't even talk to other companies until maybe your last 30 days of your contract, right?
Right. Who owned GCI before you get deeper? Who is the owner of that? Oh, that's iHeart Station. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, iHeart Station. So there was no like me planning on this and none of that because I wasn't even in a position to talk to any other companies until the last 30 days of my contract. You see what I'm saying? Now, if I'd have had re-signed prior to that, I would have never been in a position to talk to anybody else because I'd have been right back under a new contract. See what I'm saying?
Right.
So me holding out allowed me to be in a position to even have that conversation.
Oh, wow.
Because if I would have signed, I would have been probably disgruntled because I'd have been felt like I was signing because for whatever reason, you know what I mean, feeling like I wasn't getting what I was supposed to get. You know what I mean? And let's say I got that call about the morning hustle after I had signed, it would have been nothing I could do. I'd have been like, oh, I just re-signed this new contract, so I wouldn't even have been able to talk to you. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
So luckily, you know, I kind of was like, standing on what my man King say, standing on business.
Standing on business.
Not standing on business.
Luckily I was, you know, standing on that, like, nah, I'm not signing that contract because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't even have been able to entertain or even accept the morning hustle position.
Well, Google says WGCI offer you $10 million, but the morning hustle offer you 20, and that's why you left.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, I wish the numbers were like that. The numbers ain't nowhere. But yeah, I mean, to a certain extent. But then also you got to look at it the other way too. Like Cap just said, I've always wanted to be in a syndicated position. So then you got to factor that part into it.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot back in the day, like.
Because I always felt like we could, man. Like,
yeah, we could have been the morning hustle dog on it.
Yeah, I agree. Because you got to remember, like, we were together and we were making waves the same time they started the Breakfast Club, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times, and it's no knock to the Breakfast Club because I'm cool with those guys too, but I always felt like we could compete. You know what I'm saying? And I just felt like the only reason. Well, now I feel like I'm in the business, so I feel like there's a lot of different reasons, but we were never in a position to be syndicated. You know what I'm saying? At the time when the company was just Entercom, we were the only hip hop station. So who are they going to syndicate us on? That's number one. They didn't have any other radio stations to syndicate us on. And then number two, like, you know, most people weren't looking to syndicate shows out of North Carolina, you know?
Mm-hmm. Wow. True. Now, just to skip back for a moment, there were some things that we did during our tenure on the morning show that, to me, have since been pushed out of the arena of morning radio. Like, I think we took a lot of risks. We did a lot of we pushed the envelope a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't hear anybody. It's not just us. I don't hear anybody pushing it to that extent anymore. But you know, and you know what I'm talking about. I can think of a bunch of stuff like we were almost shock jocks sometimes. Mm-hmm.
For everybody listening right now, Cap J had a lady bite off his toenails for tickets to Super Jam. She chewed off your toenails to sit in the front row of Super Jam. That's crazy.
And when I tell you that first of all, let me preface this whole
it's 2023.
Let me preface this by saying, since then, I fixed my feet. This is before the fix. This is when toenails look, crusty and disgusting.
Oh my God!
But now they look like fingernails down there. I took the antifungal medicine it took like 6 months.
God.
And for all of that to pass through, and I got pretty feet now. But back then, and that you just don't see that anymore. Like, there's footage up right now of us throwing water balloons at people in the freaking cold. Like, There's a girl walking around with all of our names tattooed across her back. And I don't mean little letters.
Oh, wow.
I mean big old fat letters.
Right.
It is, man.
And the prank phone calls and all that stuff. You just don't hear this stuff or see this stuff happening in the morning show arena like it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
like this. I agree. I heard you and B Dot do crack, How crack help you lose weight?
Oh yeah. The crack diet.
You're right, man. I mean, it's funny too. I mean, the industry has changed so much. I think the first time I remember that it was going to change was, I don't know if you remember this, man. It was a woman. I don't know what city she was in or whatever, but it was a radio bit going wrong, and she died because she drank too much water.
Too much water.
About that.
And I'm gonna say that was the beginning of the end too.
That was the beginning of the end, bro.
Mm-hmm.
That was the beginning of the end right there. Because now everybody's worried about liability.
Right.
Yeah. But we definitely took advantage of the time period before there was all this oversight.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, we pushed it as far as you could take it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, man.
I agree.
Yeah,
That was a good time.
Yeah, it was. So, all right, the morning hustle. Having being here in Raleigh and having heard the show prior to your coming to it, I have to say, man, you were exactly what that show needed.
Right.
Appreciate that.
You know, like seriously, you I think it's the perfect fit for you, man.
Thank you.
You know, definitely. You bring a lot to the show, and I listen.
I have one question about the morning hustle, and I was talking to some guys at work about this. What is it? The cash grab, or I've yet to hear a man doing the 10 questions.
Oh, no, this dude's on there all the time.
Okay.
You be missing it, dear.
Yeah, we miss it. You know, we miss it.
I guess you just missed it because we definitely have dudes doing it.
Okay. So I'm probably going to text in the morning just so you know.
Yeah, no doubt. Give it a shot.
It's dope. Yeah. How was that transition? You know, going from, like you said, WGCI, that's regionally, to that national syndicated show, and working with L'Oreal and coming in so quickly after the previous guest left. I mean, the host left. How was that?
I think the radio part of it is the easiest part. Anytime this is my second time now since I left Jams and went to Chicago so the more the hustle. The more I won't even say difficult part, but the part that takes some getting used to is you have to learn different people, different companies, different protocol, how people do things differently. You know, it might be different than what you're used to. Now you're working with different people who have different habits. Mm-hmm. So it's more all of that kind of stuff than it is the actual part on the air for me. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'll give you a perfect example. When I got to GCI, I compared everything to 102 Jams. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So now in the morning hustle, like now I have all the back knowledge of 102 Jams and WGCI. You know what I mean? So I can, kind of like, oh, okay, y'all do stuff like this. Well, when we was at GCI, we did it like that, or we was on 102 Jams, we did it like that. So it's more the behind the scenes, getting to know how the company operates and how people operate. That takes a little bit more time, I think, for me at this point than just actually, being on an air part at this point feels a little bit more natural. The cool part is, you know what I'm saying, being in Greensboro, it's like, yo, where you calling from? Oh, I'm calling from High Point. I'm calling from Winston. I'm calling from Burlington. And in Chicago, so I'm calling from the South Side. I'm calling from the West Side or one of the suburbs. Now it's like, oh, I'm calling from D.C. I'm calling from Oklahoma City. I'm calling from Detroit. Like, I really enjoy that part. Like, that's kind of cool to hear people calling in from different cities. Like, that's dope to me.
Right.
That's dope to me.
So tell me this. The dynamic in the room, like I know that during that time that we worked together, I feel like being in a room for 4 hours with people, they become your family almost. Have you found that to be your experience across the board? Like you spend this time, like you spent 8 years in the same room with these people for at a minimum of 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like, do they become a second family for you everywhere you go?
I think so. I literally was in Chicago this weekend, and Leon Kendra's in LA now, so I don't see her as often. But I go to Chicago pretty frequently. So you know, I was just in the club with Leon over the weekend. You know what I'm saying? And we were just talking and blah blah blah. Like, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Like, you have that's what's kind of dope for me. Like, it's kind of like I have all these different cities that I can go to that I have a network of people in at this point.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Whether it's back in Philadelphia and I have my family members there, whether it's in Franklinville, South Jersey, I have all the people that I went to high school with there. You know what I'm saying? North Carolina, everybody from Winston-Salem State to 102 Jams. You know what I'm saying? There. Chicago, I got 8 years of people there that are the homies now. And then now I'm building, because the Morning Hustle, we're out of Atlanta. So now I'm building that in Atlanta. And then even with some of the other radio stations, just like we're on K97.5. So I got a chance to come to Dreamville and kind of, even if it's not as deep and I'm not with those people all the time, but I've established at least a base relationship with, the family at K97.5 and the family at KOIS 93.9 in DC. You know what I mean? So I'm starting to have like these little pockets of people that, I can rock with regardless of what city I'm in. And I think that's pretty dope, like just kind of having that network.
Right. It's future security too.
Yeah, for sure.
For
sure.
Yeah, no matter what happens, having a network across the country.
Right.
Now your name is gonna ring bells now. It used to ring bells in North Carolina, Philly, Jersey, Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Now your name ring bells all over the country now.
Right.
Bro, like I love it, man. I just want one of the goals is try to visit all of these different cities that the show is on. Like I want to go to Oklahoma City. I ain't never been there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I want to go and because people they hear us every day, but I ain't never even been there.
Right.
So I gotta go.
Right.
I gotta get it.
Hey, that might be something y'all need to do. You remember how Tom Joyner used to hit them parties, do those parties all over the country?
Right.
Bro, that's already on. I already got that in my little goal sheet or whatever. You know what I mean?
Hey, that's what's up, man.
So with all this success, we did a previous show about sacrifices that people make. What's some of the sacrifices you've had to make? And I heard you mention about like you left your family in Chicago to go to Atlanta. Like what are some of the sacrifices that you had to make to ensure this success?
That's a perfect example. You know what I mean? Just like that. Even when, for me, it's on some level, it's always been distance from family. Like maybe not my wife and kids. Like right now, when I'm working in Atlanta, I'm away from them. But even all the years I spent in North Carolina, like I have to. Some people have the luxury of if you live anywhere remotely close to your hometown, you can just go home whenever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even when I was in Greensboro, if I wanted to go, visit my mom and dad or visit my grandmother, I got to take vacation days. So now I'm using my vacation days just to do stuff that everybody else just gets to do with their family whenever they want to.
On the weekend, right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I got to plan trips to go home just to see people that I don't get to see every week. So like that's definitely a big deal. And other than that, that's probably been the biggest thing. In terms of like sacrifices, it's been time away from like loved ones because you're kind of like grinding it out wherever you are with your family. Even in Chicago, like it turned out. So even when I was in North Carolina, my wife's family is from North Carolina, so it wasn't too bad that because her, my sister-in-law lived right up the street. You know what I mean? My in-laws were like 2 hours away, but when we were in Chicago, now it's kind of like, all right, well, who we gonna visit? Because
right,
you know what I mean?
ADL.
It was.
Kyle's wife is from Nash County, son.
252.
252.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Rocky Mount Senior High.
He married well.
Okay. Yes, he did. That explains the success, right?
Explains the success. You got 252 on me in the corner.
Okay. Salute.
Yeah.
I was just in Rocky Mount last weekend, DJ.
Yeah, that's what's up. Rocky Mount Senior High, yo.
Right. That's dope. Boy. That's dope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carolina influence go deep.
Yeah, for sure. So that's some of the sacrifices, man. It's kind of like not necessarily always having opportunity to be around everybody I might have wanted to especially once I left Jersey.
And just for 1 minute while we're on the subject, talk about the importance of having the support of your wife. You know, I've been there, and you know, if opportunities come up, the woman in your life can make it hard, or she can make it easier.
Oh, absolutely, bro. Like, shoot, man, being in North Carolina was easy, like I said, because her family was close. You know what I mean?
Right.
But when we had to leave to go to Chicago, like that was a big deal. That was a big deal. Like, so now, like I said a second ago, now not only are we far from my family, we're far from her family as well. And you know, I know her family didn't take that well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they didn't take it well, but you know, she was.
You took our baby all the way to Chicago.
Exactly, exactly. You already know. But you know, she was always down for it, and even with this situation with the morning hustle, you know, I had conversations with her. Like, look, she was there every step in terms of, all right, well, here's what they're offering me in Chicago, and here's how we feel about that. What's your thoughts on it? And boom, boom, boom. And then, you know, the morning hustle, well, look, you know, this job, you know, I got to travel to Atlanta and, you know what I mean? So I knew it was good when she was like, I was like, you think this is the right decision? She was like, it ain't the wrong one. I said, say no more.
Yeah, say no more. Say no more. When we went to, my wife and I went to Chicago on our anniversary trip. And I was saying to myself, man, I would come to Chicago right after Kyle get a job somewhere else,
bro.
You know.
And I've been telling y'all to come the whole time.
I know that was the plan. And then we get there, and my wife reaches out to your wife. And she came through like that first day, and I was just talking to her. And, man, she's an absolute trooper, man. Shout out to Shonda, man, because she's like, yo, I'm just holding it down, you know.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Couldn't do it without her.
Yeah, indeed, man. So I wanted to say, you know, at some point before we get out of here, I just want to make sure I say, hey, man, you deserve all of this, and I'm proud of you.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you, man. It means a lot. It really does.
You know, a lot of people come and go, but
yeah,
this man has work ethic, people.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, you know, he's the first one to show up, the last one to leave. And I know you hear that about a lot of people who become successful. You know, they show up first, and the last one is out the door.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Kyle Santillian is.
Dope.
Nah, I appreciate it.
That's
you know? So,
yeah.
All right, now I'm going to pick your brain a little bit.
Okay.
Best times, worst times. So just ponder a little bit, you know what I'm saying? And just give me a few moments. Say what?
The worst times is way easier than the best times because there's a lot of good times.
All right, what's the worst times?
The worst time was getting let go from Jam.
That was the worst. Okay.
You know, and let me tell you something. Here's what's interesting about that. Here's what another reason why that was the worst time, and it was compounded more than any other thing. Like me getting let go from jams, not only did I get let go from one or two jams, you know, that's the only time in my entire life that I've ever gotten fired and let go from any job.
Hey, join the club. Me too, man.
I don't know what that's like. Like, I was like, what is this?
Yeah, what is this? What happened? You know?
I think B-Dot said you didn't say goodbye.
Not B-Dot said he came out one day and he said Kyle was driving off. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's weird. You know what I'm saying? He said, because we usually chop it up a little bit. And they say, you know, he's just gone. And Brian's like, that was Kyle's last day. It was like, you know, B-Dot said he took that kind of hard, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Man, yeah, that day was that was a sad day, man, getting pulled into that office.
Well, tell everybody how y'all huddled up and cried when I left. when they sent me home.
Yo, I don't. To be honest, I don't remember the details, Cat. I really don't remember the details.
To this day, I have no idea. But I can only
Everybody keep drawing a blank when I ask that question. Why did they let Cap go? Nobody says.
No, I still don't know.
I know you don't know. I'm asking him.
No, he don't know either. That's
Brian
the
don't know either.
I really don't know. I do remember. I feel like during that period, just in general, I remember feeling like you were frustrated a lot, though.
Yeah, it was tough. Like that period of time was just had a baby, just got married, doing this, and I'm still working the other job too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my plate.
I remember you being frustrated. I remember one morning you punched the ceiling. I remember that.
Yeah. I remember that too. But you know what I did though? I went and bought a replacement tile and put it back.
Why he punched the ceiling? Hold on, now we getting to the tea.
I don't know. He was frustrated about something.
It was everyday foolishness catching up.
Yeah.
Everyday foolishness. So you know that time I needed I think I needed a break, man.
Yeah.
Maybe,
you know,
man.
but I think for me, I'm a DJ, and you know what I like. My purpose in radio is the music first.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I came to radio to be a part of the music, not a part of the radio industry, not a host. I came to play the music that people want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And by moving from the mix shows to the morning show, I got too far out of my element. All of a sudden, I'm doing a job that's taking me out of the clubs. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just not reaching my core audience like I used to. Like people, it took me a while to figure out. Like people listen to the morning show don't do Friday nights and Saturday nights like that.
Yo, you know what's ill cap about that is, truth be told, man. Like even with all the success, so to speak, and all the fun that we had. When you go from doing nights, and in your case, going from doing weekend mix shows, I feel that because I always felt like I gave up something of myself to go to mornings.
Yeah, you give up a big piece of yourself. And it was and after, we were in there for 4 years. And after 3-4 years, it's like, man, like that part of me was my favorite part of me.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Me too, yo.
You know, that was
because that's what the thing that kept that part of me alive was probably like hosting in the clubs, since I wasn't doing it on the radio. You know what I mean?
Right. And every now and then we'll get together and we'll do a party on Saturday night, all of us together, and those were great times.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's Saturday night. I used to do this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday, maybe a Monday and a Wednesday.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just, I felt like I had stepped too far away from my core.
Yeah.
I really missed that a lot. And then I think the extra frustration getting married and having a kid during that time period where I'm already feeling like I'm separated from the thing that made me capital J.
Right.
I just took 2 more steps away from it.
Right.
So now I went to this morning show, and instead of going to sleep at 5, I'm waking up at 5. What is this? You know what I'm saying? And then married with a kid, it's like all that stuff happened. And I felt like, here goes the strangest thing. Like I was sleep deprived for the entire time.
Yeah.
I was operating on 2 and 3 hours of sleep for the entire time that I was there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And after it ended, I remember it took me about a month to stop just popping up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm like, and then I ain't got nowhere to go.
Right.
Yeah.
And eventually I felt myself come back, and I realized that being deprived of sleep, you are not yourself.
Absolutely not.
Right.
And that person, I'm like, I don't even recognize that person during that time period because that's not the normal everyday me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Then I became me again.
Right.
Yep.
So,
So Cal, talking about that.
Before you move off that point, it's interesting because that 6-month period where I was unemployed,
mm-hmm.
It's really weird how different that was because that's the only 6 months that I haven't been up at 5 a.m. since 2003.
Wow.
Right. It was different, right?
It was definitely different, bro. It's like if you feel like really do feel like it's like everything slows down, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. But all of a sudden I'm getting 8 hours of sleep. And I realized, like, you know, I don't know. I just realized that, sleep deprivation changes you,
right?
Yeah,
and you don't even realize it, and because like during this time, I'm still working my full-time job, and I couldn't finish that until like 1 o'clock, sometimes 1:30 in the morning. It's time to get right back up as soon as you go to sleep. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. But yeah, if I had to do it over again, I'd do it all over again and do it better.
Yep. Exactly.
So that leads me to my 2-part question. How do you prepare for this syndicated show, because you're on center stage now, and then how do you mentally, I guess, cope with it? Like, what do you do to cope with it? Because it's so demanding.
It's a little different now, man. Since leaving Jams and then going to Chicago and even coming here, Jams, to go to what Kat was saying earlier, like I had to handle a lot of responsibility at Jams. And what I realized is that when you get to the different markets, you don't have to do all of that.
You don't have to do all that. Right.
They have on it. Like, I haven't run the board for a morning show since I left Jams. You know what I'm saying? Like, producer. Back then too, like we had to get there early and then print out the show prep and go through it in the morning. Well, now for the most part, show prep is on your Instagram 24 hours around the clock. So let's say me and Cap are doing the show. If something comes across my feed, I can look at it, share it with him, boom, boom, boom. So when we get to work tomorrow, we kind of already know, oh yeah, we got to talk about that thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I didn't even think about the social media aspect. Like all that stuff that we would look over and try to figure out where we're gonna go, the direction of the show for the day. You don't have to wait on that anymore.
Right. Everything is instant now. So like it's kind of like a continuous thing because, you know, everybody's on their phones and stuff anyway. So now I could shoot 2 or 3 things in a group text and somebody else might send 2 or 3 things in a group text and boom, boom, boom. By the time we get to work, we already got a list of stuff to touch on. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of where and when, you know?
Right.
So it's a little different in that regard. So I don't have to run the board. I don't got to edit the phone calls most days. Some days I do, but most days I don't have to do all of that. You know, literally these days since I left Jams, it's, you know, me sitting in front of a microphone and everybody else is doing, you know, their jobs as well. So that part, it's really weird though, because I kind of miss running everything by myself.
Oh, and people who don't understand, this man's a master at editing phone calls. We would get off the phone with 45 seconds left in a song.
And you'll prep it.
Oh man, it'd be ready to go.
Right.
And then we'll seamlessly transition into the phone call right out of the conversation. Like it's an art form. It's art form that you guys don't know that this is a major artist in the art form right here. Kyle is a master of the art of radio.
Mm-hmm.
It's just ill that I haven't had to do that to that extent. I haven't had to do that since 2014, and it's really weird because I actually kind of missed that.
Right. It kept you on your toes, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Like you got to the point when I first got to Chicago and I was trying to get used to that. I was kind of like, wait, so you just want me to sit here and just talk when it's my turn? Like, that's it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That's it? It felt weird. But the other part of your question, CL, man, just like, you know, getting up in the morning, I think at this point, been doing it so long, it's like an automatic switch. Like you wake up, fucking bang back a cup of coffee, and the switch goes on. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, you might sit there. Like I came back to the crib today after work, and I definitely had to crash for like an hour and a half. But in the moment, you know, the switch just goes on, and you're on, and you're ready to go, and you know, keep it moving.
Indeed, man.
Yeah.
So what do you see? Like, where do you see the future of your career going? Like, what do you want to happen next?
What I want to happen next is, you know, the morning hustle is fairly new. So I want to, you know, maximize this as much as possible. I want us to have growth in the cities that we're in, maybe pick up some more cities that we're not in. You mentioned about, you know, like the Time Joiner bus and all of that. Like, I definitely want to do that. I definitely want to have, I'll, for lack of a better term, a morning hustle tour, visit all the different cities and have events in all these different cities. Like, you know what I mean? And eventually, you know, transition into I guess, the older format, you know, maybe in a couple of years, maybe slide into that classic hip hop format, because I always felt like that's kind of like my lane anyway. So the transition into that would be perfect, and just keep it going, man. When I look now, like, and I look back, and you know, even before I was really all the way into radio like that, but I look back now and I see the stuff that Tom Joyner was doing. Ain't nobody doing that stuff no more.
Right.
Like, he's really the go to this. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to him. And I think Ricky Smiley is probably the closest one. Ricky Smiley is also part of the same company that I'm in now. Mm-hmm. So like, follow that Tom Joyner, I'll even say Ricky Smiley lane, and try to build it out. Like, I think that's the goal.
Right.
That's the goal.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, yeah, the original syndicator.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Exactly.
Yeah, I found out they used to call him the fly jock because before he was syndicated, he used to do one show in one city, I think it was in Texas somewhere, and then fly to Chicago.
It was Chicago and Dallas.
Chicago and Dallas. He would get on the plane and fly to Chicago and do a show in Chicago.
Wow.
Every day, dog. He would do the night show or the afternoon show or night show in Chicago, and do the morning show in Dallas every day before syndication.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Right.
Yeah, that's why he got the term the fly jock. Tell me that ain't wild.
Hey, but you know, hey, that goes back to work ethic.
Yeah.
You know? So,
yeah.
So, you know, I hope y'all learn something. If you want to get anywhere, you got to go get it. You know, if you get it, if you get a foot in the door,
right? You
know, you got to kick it open and explore all the rooms in the building.
Mm-hmm. Be prepared for those sacrifices.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep. So, Kyle, without further ado, man, we're going to bring this thing to a close. In a little bit, feel like we've been talking for like 10 minutes, but I just look, it's been what?
Hour and 30.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we're moving along, but never a dull moment in here.
Right.
Hey, we appreciate you, man. We appreciate you giving us this time. You know what I'm saying?
But this the Negro in me. Can we get a shout out on the morning hustle?
Yeah, the Capital City Podcast shout out. Just say, yo, what up?
Tell them about your interview.
That ain't no problem, man. I can shout y'all out.
Hey, that's what's up. I'm gonna tell you.
Do it tomorrow. Tomorrow, right around like 9:45, 9:50, something like that.
Dope.
Hey, that's what's up, man. That's what's up. Hey, when you coming back through this way?
Sooner. I'll probably be probably Christmas.
Okay.
I think we'll probably do that way for like Christmas with the in-laws or whatever. I know that's not necessarily Raleigh, but that's when I probably do. Yeah.
Hey, well, that's what's up, man. Hey, well, next year, if you know, when you get ready to throw down and do this old school joint again, I got you.
Bro, I told you I need a venue in Raleigh.
Hey, I got venues everywhere right now, man. Right. I've been dipping around. I've been working on a classic hip hop station.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, I'm getting to know this area a little bit differently. I've been here in Raleigh Durham area for 12 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So
I need to send you out there, man. I'm definitely trying to get it going. So the plan for 2024 needs to go in effect.
I told you about that spot I had my birthday party at. I went to a My Adidas party in there during Central Homecoming, thrown by the Butter team. It was dope, man. You gotta I gotta show you that spot.
What's the name of the place again?
It's called the Durham Bottling Company.
Bottling Company. That's right. Yep.
Yep. So I gotta turn you on to that spot. You know what I'm saying?
Guys, for sure.
It's really my favorite party venue, man. It's just comfortable.
Yeah, it's a dope spot. Nice vibe.
Yep. You can go on upstairs on the rooftop and look at the skyline, the little baby skyline.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So we're gonna link up for sure, man. I get you the people you need to talk to about that. But there, there's a bunch of other venues too, but that's by far my favorite right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Yep. Well, I know you gotta get up early in the morning.
Yeah, right. Morning hustle.
Mr. Morning Hustle, you know what I'm saying? So we're not gonna hold you too long because I gotta let you get your 8 hours. So you don't be in there punching tiles out the ceiling.
No doubt, man. I definitely appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on for sure.
Hey, you rounded out the trifecta now because now we've had you, Dot, and Af on here.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go back and listen to them episodes, yo.
Oh, most definitely, man. Most definitely. Matter of fact, we need to do one together one day.
Right.
Yeah,
that'd be dope.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
For sure.
So anything you want to tell the people before you go, man?
Nah, man. I guess specifically to North Carolina, man, I appreciate everybody, that's been rocking with me since the beginning of the WSSU 102 Jams days, man. Even all the way up to now, it's so dope. It is kind of ill because, it started in Greensboro, but now on in Raleigh and Charlotte, it kind of, I know it's not the entire state, but it's kind of ill. So I just appreciate all the love, man, and all the support that comes out of the Carolinas. So, y'all know that's why I got so many homes now, but that was my second one. So I appreciate everybody. Yeah,
you're a homeboy now. You're a Carolina homeboy now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's official. Sure. Yeah, you already been through the, you've been through the fire.
Yes, sir. You already know.
Indeed. You rocked that 2 to 6 at some point, so you should be, You
said what?
Yeah, you had a chance to do a 2 to 6 at some point. Then you're officially a Carolina boy.
Yeah, there it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Santillian of the Morning Hustle, of GCI, of 102 Jams, of Winston-Salem State University, of New Jersey, of Philly.
Yeah.
Kyle Santillian.
Appreciate y'all, man. DL, Cap, J, man. Y'all keep doing y'all thing, man. Thank you.
Indeed, man. We appreciate you. It's the Capital City Podcast. I'm your host, Capital J, alongside my main man,
DL Glass.
And you can catch us anywhere you consume your podcast.
Anywhere.
Anywhere. We out of here.